Hey, it's Prerak and today I'm going to showcase the feature and procedure of installation of 8K OPS. Now this video is going to be a showcase and I'm going to be taking you through the process of installation and not exactly an in-depth tutorial. So don't rely on this video 100% to install it, but this video will give you some insightful information on it. Let's get started. This right here is the entire 8K OPS kit. It comes with all the wiring required. 4 sensors that are going to be installed at the front, buzzer, the button and the module. Now you can have a different module. This is the auto detect module. That is the manual module, which means once you put it in reverse or you press the button, the 8K OPS will start to work. With the auto detect module, if you are under 15 km per hour and you come very close to an obstacle, it will automatically open the OPS in your radio. And this is the one I'll be installing. This is the wiring for the front 4 sensors. This is the CAN bus wiring. We will be taking CAN bus from the instrument cluster. And this is the wiring for the buzzer. This is the wiring for the button that is going to be placed right over here. And this is the wiring for the sensors. The entire wiring will be routed through this trim till the very back. This right here is your current parking sensor module, which is located behind the driver side tail light right here. So we have to remove the wiring from this and install our new module over here. Now I've started to take apart the trims with this covered flathead screwdriver, and each time you will remove a trim, there will be these locks. And sometimes the pin might not come with the trim, but it will be stuck inside the body. Like, look right here, it is supposed to come off like this, but it is left inside. So when you are going to install them back, you have to make sure that you pull these out, install them over here, and then put these back in, otherwise it will not lock into place. Let's start routing the wires now. This is the CAN wiring. It is supposed to go behind the instrument cluster. This is the wiring for the button, so we have to open in this entire console to fit one button over here. And this is for the buzzer, so this has to be routed till the back as well, and we will be fitting the buzzer behind the stereo. So we need to open this and we need to remove the instrument cluster. And there is one wiring harness that goes through the firewall. If you have a manual car, it is going to be slightly difficult. With an automatic, it's very easy. I'll show that later. And each time you're working with electric components of a car, make sure to unplug your battery and remove the negative terminal. The bolt takes a 10mm socket and make sure to rest it at the side so it doesn't touch anything. Now with the battery removed, we can start to remove the instrument cluster and this entire console just to place one button over here. To remove the instrument cluster, we need to lift up this trim piece right here, this trim piece, and there will be 2 bolts at the bottom here. Those will be Torx bits. I will show them. Once you lift this trim piece up, you can even pull it out of its place. You can see there are 3 tabs over here, and these are the 3 locks it locks into. You can just pull it out. If it's being stubborn and you have to apply a lot of force, avoid pulling it out. You can still access these bolts with that flap on, but it's easier when it's off, but it's better when it's not broken, so be careful with it. And with the Torx T20, you can easily undo these 2 bolts. With the bolts removed, you can pull out the instrument cluster, and there is the connector at the back. You have to lift this pink tab up, and the blue connector will just follow the pink tab and come out. Only if it will focus. Yeah, it's focusing now. Now with this blue connector, we can just remove it by lifting this blue tab up like so. As you can see, it is out, and the orange wires are the CAN wires, which we need to remove. Now these are the 2 wires we are interested in. There's orange on black, there's orange on brown, and with the CAN bus wiring provided in the kit, we can see there's orange on black and orange on brown. We just need to match this. What we will do is remove these 2 wires from the white connector, install them in this connector right here, which is provided, and that splits the signal into 2. One will go back into the instrument cluster, and rest follows all the way down to the 8K OPS parking module. Now I have these particular pin removal tools, but any pin really would do, a safety pin. You just have to push this tab in once over here, and while pulling on the wire, you have to push it again at the second stop over here, and it will be out. And the wiring over here is done. we have successfully taken the canvas wiring from the instrument cluster, and we have returned the canvas wiring as well. And now this will run parallel with the parking module. Now it is time to remove the radio and the climate control. I have already removed the surrounding trims. Now we just need to open the bolts. 4 here, 2 for this, and there are a lot more which hold the frame in, which I'll show later. The bolts for the climate control are under it, and these are slightly different from all the other bolts that we've just opened. And we don't need to remove this entirely, we just need to loosen it so it's out of our way. And this is how the bolt is different for the climate control. It's not sharp at the end, as you can see. All the rest of the bolts of the interior which we have just removed are sharp at the end, so make sure to keep these separately. Now we need to remove this frame to get access to these buttons over here. This frame is held in by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 bolts, so we need to remove those as well. Now with all the bolts removed, we can easily pull this frame back slightly and have the vents in our hand. Now as you can see, we just need to pull it out slightly. We don't need to pull the entire frame out. Just pulling it out slightly will loose these tabs over here, and it will loosen the vents at the top. And just like that, these vents are out, and we can access the buttons over here. You can remove these connectors. There are 3 connectors in my case. You can remove these connectors and have the vent in your hand, because we need to tap into one of these connectors just like we tapped into this connector over here. These 2 wires are for illumination and ground, and this is the connector that goes to the button. The rest of the wiring will go all the way back to the module. So we need to take illumination and ground from one of these connectors. As you can see, this has illumination and ground as well, so we can take it from any of the 3. I have already taken a tap from the TCS off button for a retrofit that I am running already, which is the set button. So similarly, we are going to take illumination and ground from this one. We just need to remove the shell by lifting up this tab over here, which I've already done. So we have the shell in hand, and this is the black block. And as you can see, this right here is illumination, and the brown one is ground. Now this is wired. I've taken the illumination and ground and given it to the new connector as well. I have installed the button too. Now the color will be slightly off always. Maybe with time, when your fingers touch it, oil gets absorbed into it, it changes the color to match with the rest, but for now this is what it will look like. Now this is what the button layout looks like. Before we close it all up, we have the buzzer to be placed as well, so we need to route the wiring for that too. I wish to place it behind the stereo. I have placed it there before and it works perfectly fine. It isn't too loud either, so that is where I will install it again. This is the wiring for the buzzer. This will be placed behind the head unit, and the other end of that wire has a 12-pin connector which goes to the 8K module, so it will be routed all the way back. Now most of the wiring that needs to go behind this and the instrument cluster is laid down, and it has been routed through this P panel over here. All the wiring is going through here, and it is coming out of this, and this will follow all the way back. Now the last wiring that is left is the one that goes through the firewall. This is the connector that goes to the wiring loom of the sensors, so this needs to sit outside in the engine bay. So this is the only wiring that goes through the firewall. And for automatic cars, we can route wires through the firewall through that teardrop grommet over here. You can already see 2 wires of separate retrofits coming out of there, and we can just remove that, punch a hole through it, route all of this wiring through, and it will be inside the driver's footwell, and you can route it in further. You can cut a plus shaped cut, and it will create a small hole. You can hold open that hole with anything, really be creative with it, and route wires one by one. And after what feels like an hour, the wires are routed through the grommet, and these will go all the way back to the 12-pin connector of the 8K module. Let the connectors stay in this area over here. The wire needs to route from that point, from here to the bottom over here, because the sensors will start from here 1, 2, 3 and 4 from this side, from the passenger side. And as you can see, the wiring has entered the driver footwell, and from here we can route it with the rest of the wiring. And after we have routed that wire through the firewall, all the wires that needed to be wired are now done from the front. Now all the wiring that needs to be done is at the module in the trunk. We need to put this back on the white connector, and then we can put back the instrument cluster and attach the battery to check if this button works and test some of the wiring out. At first I took the illumination output from the hazard switch button. That did not work very well. So I have again taken the illumination from the TCS off button, which I had already taken for the set button, but it works perfectly fine. There is no problem with it. Now the wiring behind the head unit for the button and the instrument cluster is done. We can put it all back together. I have already put back the radio. We can put back the screws for the instrument cluster, and we can put back all of this trim. Now rest of the wiring has to be done at the module. Now the entire wiring up front is done. We need to route it under the trim to the OPS module. And I will loop some felt tape around it so it's all together, because there are too many strands of wires right now. Now I have looped some felt tape around so that the entire wire is intact, and I will route everything to the module now. Now with all the wires routed till the back, you have to wire in this 12 pin connector which goes into the module. There are so many pins that go into it, so a wiring diagram here helps. The entire wiring for the module and these connectors was done as well. You have to add CAN bus and PTC switch wires to the 16 pin connector, and in the 12 pin connector goes a power and ground for the front sensors and all the signals from the front sensors as well. I will show you wiring diagrams for those. Now I just have to sort this all out, tidy it up and hide it back there. That's what we'll be doing now. Now I have looped the wires, tucked the wiring back in, and there is slot for the new OPS module as well, and I have left it there. Now the wires are so damn long that you have to loop them so many times. If I had a mobile soldering station, I would have cut all of these and shortened them. I would have had to take these home and rewire them, so I didn't want to do that. I just looped them in a loop, taped them well to the body, and they're perfectly situated there. And with the liner tucked back in, you can't even tell that anything is going on here. To drill the holes for the sensors, your bumper has markings behind it. Can you see this over here? This over here. There is one over here, the third one, and the fourth one is not there. So you just have to eyeball it because you have a reference over here. To make holes for the sensors, you first need to drill a pilot hole with a bit which is wide enough to fit the bolt of the sensor cutting tool, shown later. This is the sensor cutting tool, which is just a blade that is going to precisely cut a hole for your sensor exactly to its size. You just thread it through your bumper, keep tightening it, and it will cut a hole without ruining your paint, and it will be exactly to the size of your sensor. And as for the front sensors, after drilling the holes, you can install them. They come with this holder bracket, which gets sticked onto a bumper, and you can remove these sensors so that you can give them to paint to match the color of a bumper. They will either be white or black. Make sure to remove this rubber gasket when you give them for paint, because chances are they will paint over the rubber gasket as well, and that won't look good. While installing them into the holder, make sure of this notch. The sensor has this notch and the holder has that notch only on the one side, not on the other side. So it is pretty directional, so keep that in mind as well. And after coding the module in, this is how it all functions. It is an auto detect module, so when you're driving under 15 km per hour, it will automatically bring up the OPS if you come very close to an obstacle. This is another look at it. It is in a friend's car which I had done this retrofit to recently. Similar kits are available at my Instagram shop, that Red sells, if you're interested. This is all I had to share on this retrofit. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.